I have lost part of my voice and coincidentally can't find my microphone, so the audio of this video will probably not be with the greatest quality, but I mean, what else is new? Hello fellow readers and readeresses. For about a month now, I've been exchanging emails with one of my subscribers, and just a few days ago she shared that even though she's been an avid reader her entire life, recently she's been somewhat struggling to actually enjoy the process of reading, and she asked for an advice. Now, I'm no authority here, but I've also been through periods in my life where I no longer enjoyed what had been bringing me the most joy and peace up until that moment, which is reading in this case, and not cookies, I think. So after dispersing my invaluable advice, she suggested that I actually make a video on this topic, and being that this whole channel is basically built on your ideas, I decided to do so. She asked me to not share her name, and I won't, but I thought it was important to mention that I can't take credit for this idea. Now, initially, the title for this video was going to be How to Read More, but after considering it for a bit, I ultimately decided that this is not the right approach. Because with a question like that, before we answer the how, we need to answer the why. Why do you need to read more? And do you really need to read more, or do you just want to because you see other people reading more? And don't get me wrong, I'm not here to chastise you if this happens to be the case for you. It's perfectly natural to aspire to achieve more, especially to what we see as clearly possible since other people are doing it, right? The problem is that we're all different people with different circumstances, and sometimes we aspire to achieve things that aren't possible, necessary, or even good for us. You only have a limited amount of time and energy, and overextending yourself in a given area for the sake of measuring up to someone else turns an otherwise enjoyable hobby into yet another source of stress. So here's my first advice. Do not compete. I'm starting with this one because I'm seeing more and more people commenting that Book Talk, Bookstagram, and Booktube have ruined their enjoyment of reading. And I think that's because the creators you see there, and here I suppose, are for the most part people who can afford to prioritize reading over other activities which might be essential to you. Not to mention, we all enjoy things in a different way. So don't try to read 11 books this month because somebody else did it, or read 100 books this year because somebody considers it a badge of honor and legitimacy, whatever that means. If you happen to read 100 books this year, that's great, but if you only happen to read 10 books this year, that's also fantastic. Not to mention, I'm willing to bet money that in the general case, you'd get more out of those 10 books than what most people would get out of 100 books read within a year, simply by virtue of not dividing your attention too much. It is important to remember that this is above all else a hobby, and those are meant to bring you joy and to recharge you. There is no standard for what and how much you should read. It should be a treat, not a task. Advice number 2, set goals. Yes, I know this sounds a little contradictory to point number 1, but I'm willing to argue that it's actually complementary, because while I don't think you should compete with others, achieving milestones that you've set for yourself always increases the level of satisfaction no matter what you do. Setting goals also allows you to streamline your efforts, ultimately helping you to become the person, or reader in this particular case, you want to be. However, when setting up goals, it's very important to take a data-driven approach. Do not mistake wishful thinking for planning. Make sure that you set achievable goals for the person that you are today with the responsibilities and resources that you have right now, not the person that you want to be one day. Here's a quick newbie reader example for how to set up goals. Start small with an experiment which will allow you to set a benchmark for your abilities. Try to read 10 or even 5 pages a day for a week. Make a habit tracker for that week and color a square each time you achieve it, and whether you achieve it or not, always add the exact number of pages you actually read. That doesn't mean that once you reach the goal you need to stop, but keep it small and manageable, because the point of this exercise is twofold. Number 1, get a good start and a quick win by achieving a nice goal while creating a reading habit. And number 2, figure out what's your comfortable reading page range for either a week or a day, which will give you the building block for creating all other reading goals. For example, how many books you want to read per year. Now, this is obviously just a small example, but if you're interested in other reading goals you can set for yourself, you can either watch my 2024 goal video over here, or you can reach out to me and we can brainstorm together based on your circumstances and what you want to achieve. Advice number 3, and this is very personal, less is more. Whenever people start watching booktube for the first time, and I'm speaking from experience here, they tend to get swept up in other people's hype and start hauling all the books they hear about so they aren't left behind, and so they have access to all the books that are worth reading. And as someone who's done just that, I can tell you that it has hindered my reading experience more than anything else, because here I am, years later, with all of those books that I still haven't read. And frankly, no matter how much I read, I simply can't catch up with the backlog that I've built. And at some point, it becomes a chore. I have to read all of those books because they're here. I purchased them, so I made a commitment in a way to read them. It's no longer curiosity that drives me, it's obligation. And as with most insurmountable obligatory tasks, we tend to procrastinate them. You make yourself pick up a book, but it's now a chore. It's no longer a treat. And if you've ever wondered why you never read all of those books you have on your shelves, but you keep on adding books to your TBR even though you feel guilty, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I would advise you to keep it small. Buy only the books that you're immediately excited about and read them as soon as you can. And if you're already in a situation like I am, do a little bit of an unhaul. I have an unhaul reading experiment here you can watch to give you an idea of how to do it guilt-free in a way. Reducing your physical TBR will significantly improve your chances of actually enjoying the books that you have on your shelves. Obviously, your money, your choice, but I have been there, I'm still there actually, and still dealing with the consequences. Advice number 4. Use your library. In the spirit of keeping your physical TBR small, I advise you to get a library subscription and start picking up random books from there. Again, do not overindulge. 2 or 3 books at a time is more than enough. Why I think this will help increase your enjoyment of reading is because there is an atmosphere to libraries and there is mystery to them. Here is this treasure trove of strange books that you can browse and randomly find something that sparks your curiosity on a whim. It's a fun experience, it's a nice place to go, it's an opportunity to build a reading community, and it's also a cheaper way to support your hobby. Advice number 5 is going to be slightly controversial, even though it shouldn't be, but that is get an e-reader. Look, I am also a physical book snob, or have been for the longest time, but the truth is that beyond the aesthetic, e-readers beat physical books in every criteria imaginable. And you might say,
yeah, but isn't aesthetic very important for the enjoyment of the given experience?
And to that I say, yes, if you were only going to look at it or touch it. But in this case, we're talking about ingesting millions of words in many different circumstances. No matter what you do for a living or where you live, chances are you're not spending your days on a brightly lit patio surrounded by all the books you could ever want. You have places to go, things to do, eyes that aren't always working optimally, hands that aren't always clean, and in general, endless circumstances that make reading a physical book either uncomfortable or outright impossible. Say you like to read while eating or can only read during lunch. Trying to keep open a physical book whilst handling food and or beverages is a massive struggle, not to mention the damage you can potentially do to the book. Or say you're traveling and you want to take The Way of Kings and Swan Song with you. Well, good luck to you finding space for those 2 behemoths in your luggage. And you can't take The Count of Monte Cristo in the subway on your way to work, because after that you'll have to go to the chiropractor to fix your back after holding this thing up for 20 minutes. And if, like me, you have vision problems, reading a book with tiny letters in light that is even 1 iota suboptimal is going to make the entire experience arduous, to say the least. With e-readers, this issue is eliminated, but unlike your other screen devices, there is no blue light to worry about. And sometimes you reside in places where finding the books that you want is nearly impossible, which is again eliminated by e-readers, because with them, you can find the books that you want within minutes, no matter where you are. Oh, and sometimes you run into a word that you've never seen before, and now you have to stop reading and go on your phone to find the meaning of the word, but your phone is where all the distractions live. So inevitably, you're gonna get pulled out of the story. Don't pretend that hasn't happened to you. So while I will always love and own physical books, the simple truth is that in the vast majority of the cases, reading an ebook is gonna be more enjoyable. Now, I know that e-readers aren't free and not everybody can enjoy them, but if you have the opportunity to invest in one, even a second-hand one, I highly advise you to do so. Owning an e-reader has changed my reading life and the lives of a few other people whom I've given e-readers as gifts through the years. And my mom is one of those people. Okay, the light is getting really bad here, but I'm gonna try to push through because we have one last advice remaining, and that is read what you like. Now, I know this one is rather obvious, but I did want to remind it to people because no matter how open-minded and tolerant we are nowadays, there's still a desire in a lot of us to appear intellectual and worldly. And this sometimes prompts us to, among other things, read books that we don't necessarily care for, but have been stamped as worthy. And on the flip side, sometimes we tend to stay away from books and or genre that aren't considered as reputable. I have personally been mocked for wasting my time with fantasy, and before you start feeling bad for me, please don't. I'm neither that easily shaken, nor am I innocent here. Because I too have classified genre as less than respectable, and frankly, sometimes still do. What I would like to emphasize here is that my opinion is irrelevant. Opinions on this topic in general are. Because let me go back to what I said earlier. Reading is a hobby that is meant to recharge you, and you have absolutely no obligation to read anything that doesn't do it for you. So whatever it is that makes you curious or excited or relaxes you, read that. It's your life. It's your time. Spend it on the books that speak to you, and you will enjoy reading way more. And that will do it for today's video. I probably have more to say on this topic because I always have more to say for some reason, but I think I'll keep it short and sweet this time. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you need more specific or more personal advice, don't hesitate to reach out. My email is in the channel's bio. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to see some of the most random and boring reading vlogs on this platform, check out this playlist. Bye!